everyone, welcome back. Today we're doing a side-by-side of two brand new foundations. I have the new Anastasia Impeccable Foundation and the new Dior Forever Hydra Nude. We're gonna put one on each side, wear them all day long, and I'll give you my thoughts, my first impressions, and we'll see which one I like best. So that is today's video. It's been quite a while since I've done just a straight foundation review on my channel. I do really like doing those. I used to do them a little bit more frequently, but these two I've been hearing so much about and curiosity got the best of me. So I figured we could put them both in the same video. If you are new here, my name is Blair. I do all kinds of beauty content here on my channel, and I would love for you to subscribe if you haven't already, but let's just get into the foundation. All right, let's get started. Let's start with the Dior Forever Hydra Nude. Now this is new. I believe it's an Ulta exclusive. I purchased mine in store. I do think Dior had another foundation they launched last year that was an Ulta exclusive, and I believe this one has replaced it because I looked online and I couldn't even find it anymore, but it was in similar packaging, but I believe this one has replaced that. So this is, oh, this bottle is so pretty. First of all, I mean, it has this really pretty light nude, kind of glassy, glossy looking lid, but this is beautiful. So this is $57. It comes in 18 shades and it's supposed to be a medium coverage with a lot of hydration, a lot of skincare. Now, a little bit about my skin at the moment. I am 22 weeks pregnant and my skin is pretty dry right now. I do not typically have dry skin. Typically my skin is more normal, and then sometimes in the T-zone I'll get a little bit oily. That's usually in the spring and summer though, and right now we're in the dead of winter, so it's very cold and very dry, so my skin is even drier. So for that reason, you would think this one might be a good option for me. Full disclosure, I did try this once already. I have not tried the Anastasia foundation, but I did try this yesterday. I was just in the mood to try something and I wasn't filming anything, so I just decided to try it on my own. So I kind of have my own thought on this already, but we're gonna try it again. I got the shade 1.5 Neutral, and it looks like this. It's a pretty good shade match for me. Something I did notice when I was in store is actually shade 1N was a little bit darker than shade 1.5N, which I thought was a little bit interesting, but this is shade 1.5 Neutral. So let's go ahead and apply. I'm gonna apply this one on this side of my face. This one does have the classic Dior fragrance. FYI, if you don't like that, this one, it does have that, but it's very, very thin, lightweight feeling on the skin. I really enjoyed it yesterday when I used it. And I am applying this with the BK Beauty 116 brush. Actually, let me zoom you in a little. Normally I use the 106. In fact, I thought this was a 106 when I grabbed it, but it's not. It's the newer one, which is the 116. Basically like the 106, it's just smaller, but this will work fine. So as you can see, this is actually like a spot on shade match for me, which honestly lately that has been really difficult. I've found that pretty much everything pulls yellow. Literally everything I try, it seems like lately, in terms of concealers and foundations, look yellow. But this is a very good shade match. Okay, so there it is on this side of my face. Now you can see I do not have perfect skin. I have some little broken capillaries here. I have a little bit of melasma that's here. I have a little melasma up here too. I definitely don't have perfect skin though, so I feel like I can, you know, give you relevant information in terms of how it covers, how it wears, does it last, those kinds of things. Okay, so there it is on that side of my face. And honestly, I would say this is very hydrating. Like, it feels super hydrating. It's not as glowy as I was afraid it was gonna look. Like, to me, there's a difference between a really hydrating foundation and a really luminous glowy foundation. I don't think they're necessarily synonymous, even though I think some people assume hydration automatically means it's going to look dewy, and I don't necessarily think that's the case. This one looks like a very naturally hydrated finish to me. Even though it is, you know, more on the hydrating side, it doesn't look like it's emphasizing anything here like texture. Now, I don't have super large pores or anything. I don't really struggle with that. Mine is mainly like a pigment issue, but honestly, this looks really nice, really smooth. I like it. I like it. I do think I would say this is probably about a medium coverage. Maybe I could build it up just slightly. I did do that yesterday, but this is about as much coverage as you're gonna get from this foundation. I'll go ahead and add just like tiny bit more, just so you can see that it might build up slightly, but you know, it's like I said, it's not going to be more than a medium coverage with this. So I took like I mean, it wasn't even like half a pump. It was probably like a quarter of a pump, maybe less. So you can see, I mean, it maybe added like a little bit more coverage there, but this is about as much as you're gonna get from this one. I have tried the Dior Stick Foundation. I like that one. It's actually coverage-wise, I would say pretty similar to this one. This one I do find is more hydrating though. The Dior Foundation Stick is very creamy, but I wouldn't say it adds hydration to the skin, even though it's on the creamier side in terms of a cream. This one, I can definitely feel the skincare and the hydration like immediately as soon as you apply it. All right, let's move into the Anastasia Impeccable Foundation. It's a blurring second skin matte foundation. Now, this may go, you know, horribly wrong because of my skin right now, but I wanted to give a perspective of someone that typically doesn't have dry skin but has dry skin right now. Even though my skin is like prepped and pretty hydrated, I'm curious how something like this will work for me right now. All right, so this is what it looks like. It's a really pretty frosted glass bottle with like a mirrored cap here. So this foundation is $46 and it comes in 25 shades. And it actually, you do get a little bit more product in here. This one has 1.18 fluid ounces and the Dior is just 1 standard fluid ounce. So not a huge difference, but you do actually get a little bit more product in here and it's less expensive. But this, let me just pull it up here so I get this correct. This says it's supposed to be a medium, full, long-lasting coverage with a natural velvet matte finish. Now, for me, when I swatched this in Ulta, seems like it's going to be a full coverage to me, not a medium coverage, but that was just kind of my perception with swatching it. It also claims that it will blur pores and imperfections while hyaluronic acid hydrates and smooths the skin, giving seamless, flawless coverage that wears up to 12 hours. We will see about that. So let's go ahead and try this. I'll swatch this one on my other hand. Something else I want to point out about this one is the shades. Okay, definitely run warm on this one. I actually thought I was going to be shade 1N, and I'm glad that I went in store and looked at it because 1N, not neutral. Definitely warm leaning. So I did go with 1CR, which is Cool Rosy, and that looked to be a better shade for me. So we will see about that. But just so you know, if you're ordering online, to me, the neutral shades all look to be pretty warm. All right, so there is the shade 1CR there. To me, that looks pretty neutral. I don't think that looks like overly rosy, but we'll see how it looks on the skin. As you can see, it is definitely more pigmented. You get a lot of pigment there. So let's apply this, I am going to switch brushes, I think. Well, actually, no. I'll just keep the same brush. I'm just gonna kind of wipe it off. So I'm just gonna get some on the brush here from the back of my hand and start tapping it in. I am definitely thinking less is gonna be more with this one, because like I said, it is very, very pigmented and opaque. And actually, I think the shade match is like spot on, which is crazy because I was a little bit worried. Sometimes shade matching in Sephora and Ulta can be very deceiving depending on, you know, the lighting and all that, but this actually looks like a good shade match. Something else to note is this side of my face has more discoloration. So typically this side is a little bit harder to cover than this one. So that's kind of why I wanted to put this on this side, since this is obviously giving more coverage than the Dior did. I'm just grabbing it off my hand and then going back on the face. All right, so we've got Anastasia over here, Dior over here, and surprisingly, these almost look like they're identical shades, which is kind of crazy to me considering Dior is supposed to be neutral, Anastasia is supposed to be cool rosy. Nobody can seem to get a neutral tone correct. It's unbelievable, truly. But one thing I want to say about this Anastasia one, which kind of surprised me as I was applying it, is it is very opaque. You could see like it gave a lot of coverage with not a whole lot of product, but it's actually not super thick feeling on the skin. It feels more thin as you're applying it. It just doesn't give you that hydration, the skincare kind of feel that the Dior one gives. But it doesn't feel thick on the skin. It's very thin for how pigmented it is, which is amazing. And I mean, I will say this side here looks very, very smooth. A little bit more smooth, I would say, than this one. Although I don't struggle with large pores, so it's kind of hard for me to say, but I do think overall this side looks a little bit smoother just overall in terms of texture, but that's coming from someone that doesn't really struggle with that. Mine is more of like a pigment issue. I mean, the coverage on it is phenomenal because typically I have trouble getting full coverage in this area right here. And I mean, you can maybe see a little bit of my little capillaries right here peeking through, but I mean, it's really not much at all. Now, I don't bring foundation under my eyes. I don't try to cover my under eyes with foundation. I save color corrector and concealer for that. So I'm not trying to cover this melasma and this darkness here with the foundation. But I mean, yeah, overall, they both look really nice. This one definitely looks a little bit more matte. This one, I wouldn't say dewy. I would say more of like a natural finish. They both look really nice. Now, the true test will be how they look throughout the day. A lot of foundations look great when you first apply them, and then, you know, 4, 5, 6 hours later, they don't look like that anymore. So we will see today what we think of how they look. But I mean, there's no denying this Anastasia one it's very beautiful. I mean, they use the word impeccable. It looks pretty impeccable on my skin right now. One other thing I did want to mention though about the Anastasia one is this only comes in 25 shades. I'm not really sure why, because something with this much pigment and this full coverage, you need more than 25 shades because, as you may know, if you are applying a product that's medium, they're saying medium, I would say this is more of a full coverage. You really need your shade match to be pretty spot on. Otherwise, it's going to be, you know, pretty obvious just looking at you that the shade is off. So I do think they should have launched more than 25 shades with this. I'm not really sure why they would have done that. The Dior only comes in 18. Shade range is not as important with that type of formula though. So I can kind of understand that a little bit more. But with this one, I think they definitely should have launched more than 25 shades. And I think they need to work on the undertones, but it does look beautiful. I'm gonna go ahead and finish the rest of my makeup, and then I'll come back and kind of give you some more thoughts after I've applied everything else, but I'll be back in just a second. All right, I finished the rest of my makeup, and I wanted to give just some thoughts on these foundations now. So again, I have Anastasia on this side and Dior on this side. So initial thoughts just after applying everything else. Anastasia definitely looks a little bit more matte. I did powder both sides. I used the Makeup by Mario powder. I didn't use a ton of it. I just kind of worked it into a puff and lightly set my face with it. But Anastasia definitely just looks a little bit more matte, a little bit more smooth overall. This side just looks a little bit more perfected, I guess you could say, than the Dior side. The Dior side does not look bad at all. I really like how it looks. It's just the coverage is just not quite as much as the Anastasia side. But honestly, there's not like a substantial difference after applying my whole face. I just think Anastasia looks slightly more covered than the Dior, and but they're both sitting really nicely on the skin. I'm not seeing anything weird happening on either side, and I do actually think the colors are like the same, which is kind of crazy because they're two different brands, supposedly two different undertones. To me, they look very similar on the skin. But those are kind of my thoughts. I do also think that the Anastasia side, I probably could have gotten away with no powder on this side. I just didn't want to powder one side and not powder the other. But this side already looked kind of like I had used a setting powder by the time I got to the setting powder step. So I probably could have skipped the powder on that side. And if you have dry skin, you might be able to do that. Like I said in the beginning, my skin is definitely more dry right now. So something with this finish, I could definitely get away with using little to no powder. Whereas the Dior, I did feel like I wanted just a little bit of powder, even though it didn't look overly glowy or dewy like I was saying when I applied it. But I mean, honestly, they both look really good right now. But the difference is obviously probably going to come from the wear time. So I'm going to wear these all day long today. I'll do several check-ins. I'll go in natural light. I'll get on my phone so you can see from in different lighting from a different perspective. But so far, they're both very pretty to me. It would just kind of be a personal preference thing. Do I want something full coverage that's more smoothing and blurring and perfecting, or am I looking for something that's gives some coverage but it's a little bit more natural with a lot more hydration? So it just kind of depends, but we'll see how they wear. So I'm gonna wear these all day, and I will see you in a few hours for the first check-in. Okay, check-in number one. It's been like 3.5 hours now since I applied these. So I'm just standing in front of some natural light right here so you can see. So this side is Anastasia, and this side is Dior. So far, honestly, they're not, I mean, nothing has really changed with them. I still think overall that the Anastasia side looks just a little bit smoother, like especially in this area, as opposed to this side, but I don't think either of them look bad. I don't think the Dior looks bad. It's just not quite as smooth looking texture-wise as the Anastasia side, but they both look really good, and I still think these are like the exact same shade, which is crazy to me since it's two different brands, supposedly two different undertones, yet they look the same to me. But I mean, overall, pretty happy with both of them at this point. Hopefully this is really good natural light so you can really see. So again, this is Dior and Anastasia. that's kind of where we're at. Not a whole lot has changed really. I'm gonna wear this for quite a while longer though, and I'll come back and do another check-in, probably 2 more check-ins. I'm using my phone. I was gonna switch to a smaller little camera, but I honestly think the iPhone quality is better, so I'm just sticking with the iPhone. But pretty happy with these so far, but we'll see in a few more hours what we think. All right, check-in number 2. I'm sorry, it's gonna sound really echoey in here, but this is really where I'm getting the best light right now to show you. This is actually the nursery and there's nothing in this room, so that's why it's so echoey. But I just wanted to get one more clip before I lose all the natural light here. So we have Anastasia on this side and Dior on this side. Oh my gosh, my cat, he's literally following me everywhere I go. Crying, what's wrong? Anyway, so Dior's over here. Dior looks really, really good. Dior definitely has more glow, I think, on this side, which is to be expected. It has skincare in it, and it's just, you know, a more hydrated, glowy type of product anyway. This side looks really beautiful to me. This is the Anastasia side. And you know what? It's a matte foundation, but it really doesn't look that dry yet on my skin. I mean, definitely looks a little bit more matte for sure than like this side, but it looks pretty good to me. And we're going on like hour 6 now of wearing these two. So I don't know, y'all, to be honest. I'm really surprised. I typically will get a little bit of like settling in this area after a while with fuller coverage foundations. I mean, maybe we're getting like a tiny little bit right there, but nothing crazy. So I don't know. I'm pretty impressed with both of these so far, but I'm gonna wear them for a few more hours and I'll be back for the final check-in, but so far, very, very impressed. All right, it's the end of the day and I'm about to go take my makeup off, but I wanted to show you what these are looking like on my skin now. It's been almost 9 hours of wear. I have not touched my face with anything, haven't touched up anything at all. I've eaten dinner and done all kinds of things and just haven't touched my face at all. Overall, I still think they both look pretty good. To me, the Anastasia side, it looks pretty close to how it looked earlier. I think maybe, I actually noticed this on both sides. It's kind of collected weird on my nose right here. This is the Anastasia side. The Dior side actually kind of did the same thing. I wonder if I didn't blend the foundations in on my nose very well. Something weird that I've noticed in pregnancy is that foundation doesn't seem to want to stick to my nose. And I've never had that issue before, but I have noticed that in pregnancy just with other complexion products. So I don't know that that's foundation specific, but I did notice that. In terms of like wearing away, I really don't feel like either of them have worn down very much at all. I do think on the Dior side here, I have like a little bit of settling in this line right here, which is so tiny, you probably can't even see it. But I have this like one little line right here that a little bit of it is kind of sitting in. And I don't really have that on this side, on the Anastasia side. But other than that, overall, I think it looks pretty good. I think the Anastasia side looks even more matte now, maybe, with the exception of my nose. It looks a little shiny and kind of weird on my nose. And the Dior still looks a little bit glowy. So I think the finish has kind of remained, other than I do think Anastasia might look like slightly more matte, a little bit more dry, I guess. Not in a terrible way, like I wouldn't wear the foundation again, but just after 8.5, 9 hours of wear with a really matte full coverage foundation, that's kind of bound to happen. But really pretty good overall wear on both of these. I think this is gonna kind of come down to personal preference, honestly. I am not someone that wears a full coverage foundation every day, but I do like to have one for those times when I want that. I think this is a beautiful foundation overall. Is it gonna be an everyday for me? No, but I don't personally wear full coverage on a daily basis, but I can appreciate a nice full coverage matte foundation, and I think this is a really, really good one. If you have oily skin and you like a lot of coverage, I think this is definitely one to look into, as long as you can find a shade match that works well for you. But I'm very impressed with it, more impressed with it than I thought I would be. But this would definitely be more of like an event or just, you know, special occasion type of product for me, most likely. I do want to try though. I did see Nikki LaRose in one of her videos. She was using this. She was talking about mixing this with a liquid illuminator to make it less full coverage and a little bit glowier, a little bit more hydrating. So I would love to try that out with this formula. I think she's been mixing hers with the Urban Decay luminizers that just came out. I don't have that, but any glowy product would work with that. So I would love to try that with this foundation. But overall, I do think it's very nice and I'm pretty impressed with it. The Dior, I could see this being like an everyday kind of foundation for me, because typically I like something that gives some coverage but is on the lighter side of coverage, and then I like to use a fuller coverage concealer. That's kind of my go-to more everyday makeup routine combination. So I could definitely see myself continuing to use this quite a bit. And I honestly really like it. I think Dior does complexion products really well typically. Like I said earlier, I do have the Dior stick foundation and I really like that. But I like this because it is definitely more hydrating than that. So, you know, for those days when my skin is feeling very dry and dehydrated, this would be a really good one to go for. And the shade match is pretty good. Same with the Anastasia. So I think if you have dry skin and you're looking for a little bit of a glow, not too luminous, medium coverage, this is really nice. Really, really nice from Dior. Honestly, I didn't expect to like both of these, but I really do, to be honest. Obviously, this is just my first time wearing them, so I'll have to keep playing around with them. Definitely want to try mixing the Anastasia one as well. But those are kind of my thoughts after wearing it for about 9 hours at this point. I hope the video was helpful for you. Let me know if you've tried either of these formulas or if you want to. Let me know and I will have them linked. I will have everything else that I used for my makeup today linked in the description box as well. If you do shop through any of my links, I do make a commission that supports my channel. So thank you so much for that. And if you're new, I would love for you to subscribe and make sure you're following me over on Instagram at simply.blair and TikTok simply.blair1. And I will see you again very soon. Remember, simply be you. Bye.